All right, here we go.
Here we go.
Vancouver Renovation.
Vancouver Renovation.
Here we have the fireplace, new tile front on it. This gets a nice mantle and then painted up. New gas fireplace, so there's a bump out on the outside of this, going outside. I guess one interesting thing with this is there's a limiting distance. So this bump out that's on the outside that allows this fireplace to push further that way. It is within 4 feet of the property line, which is considered a limiting distance. So I think we're 2 foot, 2 and a bit to the property line from the actual outside, which means that it had to be non-combustible construction. So everything kind of from this part of the fireplace outwards is all built out of steel stud and cantilevered out and everything. So the decent amount of effort went in to make that work. And moving on, this is the living room. We've got a lot of stuff going on here. We have a lot of trades running through here.
Pretty busy.
Just working through everything. Kitchen cabinets are in. Pantry is also in. You can see the larger holes in the ceiling are going to be for speakers. The smaller ones are for pot lights, except for the 2 that are over the island here. These are going to be pendant lights. So this kitchen island, you can see a bit of how it's going to be finished, different finish than the stuff around the perimeter. This gets a 15-inch overhang on this side over here. So countertop overhangs 15-inch. Since it's out 15 inches, there's actually going to be almost like a tabletop framing on the bottom side of it, just to make sure everything is nice and secure. There's going to be kind of decorative posts going in at the corner. And the whole goal of this was that the client can sit here with their family and have kind of like 3, 4, 5 people sitting around the kitchen island. So there's probably, I think it's 3 people can sit comfortably at this side. And then there's like a bit of space here for people kind of to sit sideways, but they can still sit around the island and eat. Yeah, and over here, I guess one of the cool features here is we're going for, it's a ceiling mounted hood fan, but since it's a sloped roof above here, we couldn't recess it completely into the ceiling with the insulation requirements. So this is a millwork box that drops it down. So there'll be a hood fan here, and then there's a 36-inch cooktop that goes here, and then a 30-inch oven slides in here. So the way that we do this is a 30-inch box for the oven, but 36-inch over here. That means that we end up cutting into a bit of this box. We'll kind of carve this out, so we get a nice 36-inch bigger cooktop with the smaller oven, 30-inch oven that they're looking for. And then you can see over here, this is I believe it's a Richelieu spice rack. And then these are all, you have the ability to kind of pop these out. Cool little feature. So this one's fixed. This one is removable. So anything with the yellow is removable. Let's put that back into place. And then this little mechanism kind of locks it in so it doesn't pop out, if I can figure out how to do it right. And then it's kind of pressure. And then the only thing that they really sacrifice with this larger cooktop that kind of cuts into the cabinet boxes below, there's no impact to the spice cabinet. It'll actually fit. And then this box right here actually gets cut out. So you have your gas line popping down here with the cooktop. So we just need to kind of carve out a bit of this box. Drawer will still work kind of the way it's intended to. You're just going to have like a small little portion at the back that isn't, it's going to be cut out, so not usable. And then we're missing a cabinet here. It's a bit interesting here because we have the flat ceiling here, but with the roof above, you can see, I don't know if you can really see it, there is a bit of an angle going up here, and that meets in the corner with 2 angles. So we wanted to get these cabinet boxes in, and then this is a custom box that'll tuck up, and as soon as it's up there, it kind of conceals all of that angle. So the only place that you'll really see the angle, tiny bit over here and then above the door, but there's lots of breathing room above that, so it'll look good. Here we have a farm sink going in. So it'll be a farm sink. This is a bit of a different install here. Normally our farm sinks are undermount, so we have the countertop come over the we have the countertop come over the sink, and the sink is mounted to the bottom. In this case, the client is taller, so they want the sink as high as possible. So in this one, the sink is actually going to sit above the countertop, and the countertop will butt into it. So I think we're having about an inch, or it might be a bit more, so that we can lift it up. We're cutting the countertop around what the sink is right now. And then when we get on site with the countertop will go in, and then we'll lift the sink up and get the client here and kind of gauge exactly where they want it. And then we'll kind of finalize the height. As soon as that's finalized, we'll get a proper structure underneath here. We'll reinforce it, make it nice and solid. And then we'll get a finished trim piece around here, and it'll just finish it all up nicely. So this will end up, depending on how high they want it, this will be a taller or shorter trim piece, and it'll kind of carve and be carved out around the actual sink itself. Dishwasher goes here. And then here, this was a bit of a discussion of like, what do they do with the window? This is where they wanted the sink. They wanted the cooktop over there with a window looking out into the back patio or backyard. And then it was a bit of a weirdness here going into the window. So the solution that everybody kind of landed on was countertop lands here, and then the countertop actually runs into this space, so they can have kind of a window space where they can put plants and everything else. And then the concern was, if there's water from this countertop, how do we make sure it doesn't go into the windows? Because it is higher than the windows. Bit of a weird detail, but it kind of is what it is. Sometimes it happens in renovations. So the solution here is the countertop runs over here, and then there's going to be a vertical piece of countertop that comes up this way and sits about half an inch up off of this horizontal countertop to work as a bit of a backsplash. So if any water hits here, it'll hit a half-inch upstand of quartz, which is very like, it's how a backsplash kind of works in this scenario. You're not really worried about the splash. You're worried about, I guess, more of the flooding. And that'll prevent that. That gives you something that can get caulked and kind of tank it, make it waterproof. And then over here, this is all going to be a tile backsplash. So we're going from a tile backsplash, countertop, and then a tiny, call it half-inch little ridge over there to keep everything in. Anything else in here? There's going to be an appliance garage going in this little area here. So countertop will go into the appliance garage, millwork above, built-in fridge. And then that's kind of most of the details on this one, on this floor. I guess this is the wall that we have. This is where a ton of the mechanical exhaust, high velocity air and everything, this is where it goes up into the attic space and then distributes for the top floor. So there a lot of thought, and this is kind of just filled with mechanical pipes and return air, exhausts for the combi unit, and a bunch of other things are in there. And then we'll just walk upstairs and kind of show you what's going on up there. So over here, we have the primary bedroom. This client found this cabinet at an antique place, and they want to use this as the vanity for the ensuite. So what we're doing here, this top is being removed here. So that's being pulled off. Quartz is going on top as a countertop, and then they have a vessel sink that sits on top of it. In order to get it down, it's sitting a little high for what a vanity is, even for tall people. So it would be cutting down the legs, dropping it down, putting the 3 centimeter countertop on top, vessel sink on top. And then this here goes into, this is the ensuite here. So you can see on the wall, everything is kind of laid out. It has wainscoting running around the bathroom. It's doubling as a backsplash for the vanity. It's a beadboard. You can see kind of where the sink lands. So everything is laid out on the wall, just so everybody knows where everything lands. And then this is the shower. So it'll get a custom glass in here, shower door over here. A new window in the shower, rain shower head. And then we have the built-ins installed already. So there is going to be millwork closet doors here. This is the built-in millwork. And then right over here, you can see, this is the walk-through closet, I guess. So pocket door on either side of here. And to get in, so you can close it for privacy. This is kind of making as best of use of space as possible on both sides. I guess an interesting thing here is if you look on the other side of the wall here, we have a niche here, which is inside of the wall, which is very close to where this is. So anytime we have a niche going into a wall, we need to be really mindful of what happens on the opposite side. So there is plywood backing here for the back of the niche, which makes it a lot more solid, and the tile and everything is on that side of it. This side, we just needed to be very clear to the installers that no screws could go in anywhere here. So that came into the planning of how this was going together and how it's going to be installed and everything. So just something that we had to consider when we were doing it. And then pocket door over on this side again.
Same scenario for screws when it comes
Yeah.
to the pocket doors. Right?
Yes. So anytime you're working around a pocket door, you need to be very mindful of, no baseboard or anything in here yet, but as baseboard goes in, we've seen it several times where a baseboard goes in and they start pinning it in, and then the pins actually go through and then they scratch the door as soon as the door is installed. So every time we're doing baseboard casing and everything on pocket doors, we need to be really mindful of the length of the pins and making sure that the pins don't go into the space where the pocket door is. It's happened before where we've seen other people, they've actually put screws, they put pins and everything, and then the pocket door gets locked. So people have said that their pocket door isn't usable. We show up and then it's usually a relatively easy fix of popping those things out. Another thing, just kind of while we're up here, it's kind of a scenario where the reason that we put the pocket door moving this way, obviously, like we have a shower on this side, but one of the questions we get asked often is, can people put a pocket door that slides in behind a shower? We typically don't like doing that because if you look at this wall, pocket doors, there's a decent amount of flex here. So if we put that in a shower space and then put tile on top, most of the pocket doors, I guess these pocket doors are made of wood. You can get reinforced frames that are metal. They're a lot more solid. And then if someone ever wanted one that had to go where a shower is, that's what we would default to, is kind of the strong one that would be kind of a structural member in itself, and then anchor drywall to it and make sure that it was a solid wall. But we don't typically put tile on any pocket door that's a wood pocket door, unless we build a wall in front of it, and that wall in front of it will be a structural component, just to make sure that when that pocket door moves and everything, it doesn't have any flex in it.
Yeah,
and
so
then
the vibration may crack the grout
yes,
and damage the
exactly.
drywall.
Tiles will start popping off, which is not what we want. And then walking over here into, this is the kids' bathroom. So you can see, yeah, it's a pretty cool kids' bathroom. I really like this blue tile. It came together quite nicely. It's got a chair rail running around everywhere. Wallpaper goes on here, and I believe it's a dark wallpaper. It's gonna look really cool in here for a kids' bathroom. Niche in this wall.
And the chair rail, I guess, does keep an element of heritage to this.
Yes.
100-year-old, over 100-year-old house.
Yeah, so you can see there are design elements that kind of like homage or whatever back to the older nature of this house, where it's kind of the floor with the smaller mosaic tile. This is a pre-built vanity that's going in here, so it'll kind of just sneak in right there. Bit of space on the left-hand side. I guess in here, this is one of the things where this bathroom is actually over 5 feet wide. Bathtubs typically come at 5 feet wide. So what we typically have to do whenever we're putting a bathtub in a space that is wider, we'll need to bring in one of the walls. Into this one, there's a niche on this wall, so we brought this wall in to close in for a 5-foot bathtub. It actually works out perfectly, so we get a nice niche in here, nice little detail. And I think this room is 5'3" or 5'4" finish, which that makes sense right here. And then we'll just kind of move on. You can see here, so this is the old trim that was reused. So the stuff in the original house was taken off very carefully and saved as much as possible. And then everything on this top floor, I believe, all this casing is the original casing. These headers, these two are original. And then if you kind of swing around here, you can see that these ones are MDF. But when they're painted and everything, the whole goal is to look all the same. I guess one interesting thing up here is, so that our clients are relatively tall people. These doors were actually lower than a 6'8" door, and they have to duck every time they go underneath it. We weren't touching these doors. We weren't removing them. In Vancouver, if we wanted to take this door out and put a new one in, we would need to grow. So any new door in the city of Vancouver needs to be 2'10". I believe these are 2'6", 2'4", 2'6" doors. So if we took this out and replaced it with a taller door, they would force us to go for a 2'10" door, which would introduce a lot of problems. There's not too much space in between here in the rooms to make it work. So we kept these doors. The original doors will go back in, but that led to the new doors we installed at the higher height. So the kids' bathroom has a normal height door. The primary bedroom has an original height door, but it leads to this little bit where the tops of all of these header trims line up all around the top here, but the bottoms of these, it extends a bit lower. So this is what we came up as a solution. Not ideal, but it's kind of working with what we're given and what the original is and kind of making it as best as we can. And then over here, you can see this is the original stair skirt over here. So this original stair skirt will tie into new will tie into existing, sorry.
Yeah.
On both sides. Yeah, I guess not much more to say that. Skirt's going down here. It's pretty tight stairwell. We didn't want to touch anything in the stairwell because like right now everything is grandfathered, so it is what it is. There's some spacing that are too tight and wouldn't be allowed now, so we didn't want to touch any of this. That would make us have to bring it up to code because that would be kind of a rebuild of everything. So we just didn't touch anything in here. Existing stays. And then we'll just go downstairs. Here we go. Here's the mechanical room. So in this house, we have high velocity forced air, which means that instead of a typical forced air duct, which is larger, we can get away with smaller forced air ducts that are insulated. So this is an example of a forced air duct that these are offtakes off of our main chutes. So this is what we have running everywhere instead of the bigger, larger ducts typically required. So that is this system. So we have a on-demand combi unit, I guess. So this will do both the domestic hot water as well as the hot water for the forced air here. And then we have air conditioning lines going in. Heat pump will be outside. This is how it's connected to outside. So there will be a chilling coil in here. as well as the heat coil for this. And the heat will use hot water from this, and then it will use the cold refrigeration from the heat pump here. So this is the blower unit. Blower sits behind here. I guess there's a little pedestal that it sits on just so we can put a pan underneath it and then drain it out here for any condensation and everything that happens in there. But you can see this is a pretty compact mechanical room. It will get more compact as soon as we start connecting all of these pipes here. This is what I showed on the main floor. This is what the pipe that goes all the way up to the attic. So this is the pipe, and this is the exhaust pipe, drainage pipe, water lines. There's a lot of stuff that go up on that main floor in that little drywall cavity that I was showing. And then you can see we have return airs. You can't see the return airs right now. We're using the cavity space. So we'll come back here later as the project progresses and we get all the tin in here. And you'll see that there will be a lot of this space that is taken up by ductwork that is bringing the return air back to this space and then distribution out for the heat or the cold, depending on where it is. And then we have the filter running down in this corner here. So that's your kind of return air will run down there through the filter and then up and out to distribution. And it's going to be very tight in here, but it's...
Great use of space.
Yeah, this client wanted to make this mechanical room as small as possible, and then there was a lot of coordination on exactly where everything lands and trying to make it as tight as possible. So everything works out. Just had everybody on site confirming everything works. Down here we have... This is the basement bathroom, which is, I guess, the guest bathroom. Same idea here, where this room is wider than 5 feet. So this is the solution. 5-foot shower pan goes in. They wanted a niche on this wall. Allows us to cut into the wall, not worry about structure or anything. This is kind of a cosmetic wall in front of it, just so everything works. Vanity. I don't even know if it's down here. Yeah, that's this toilet.
Beautiful tile.
Yes.
Floor.
Yeah, so this tile is repeated in all of the bathrooms, I believe. And then going into the laundry room. This is the laundry room. So one of the biggest challenges on this project was getting the distribution of the forced air, heating and cooling through the house without having drops everywhere. So actually, I'll just show you as an example. Sorry, I'm sneaking by the camera here. There is a distribution that goes in here. This pipe right here, it runs inside of a joist space here. And then it runs down this wall, underneath the stairs, up this wall over here, gets into this space up here, runs along, and then turns and goes that way. And this is how we get heat and air conditioning to the front living room where that fireplace was. So there's a lot of work that goes on here to try and hide and not just put drops everywhere, so you're ducting everywhere. A lot of effort was put in just to make it like very usable space. A lot of times you have valences on the top of millwork anyways, so we tried our best to incorporate it as best as possible. Window here, there'll be a laundry sink right there. Washer and dryer are elevated on this platform right here, so dryer on the right-hand side, washer on the left.
And it's storage under the washer and dryer, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
That's a great use of space.
Yeah. Oh, double drawers.
Look at that.
I knew that. And then bar fridge is going in there.
And was there a detail about closet heights down in the this laundry room and the
yes. So that's a good point. So like, it's all hidden now, but back in the day, there was actually a structural header that dropped down probably about this height. It was quite a bit lower than this. And the client had to duck every time they went into this room. So we pushed up the structural beam. So it's a flush beam. We pushed everything up into the joist space to allow, these are 6'8" doors everywhere in the basement. So our client that is 6'5" or something, 6'5", 6'6", he doesn't have to duck under these doorways, which is quite nice. And then we'll just kind of go over here. Yeah. So this over here, this is going to be kind of the media area. This is where a recessed pocket projector screen is going to go. So the projector screen will go up in here, get pulled down whenever they use it. And then over there, there's going to be a shelf with the projector for kind of their media. They'll put their couch and everything over there. And then over here, this is the upgraded panel. So this is a 200 amp panel. It used to be, this house was a bit weird. It had 200 amps in the house, but it had 100 amps in a panel here. And then it had 100 amps in a panel up in the kitchen in a closet. And it didn't come to one panel as 200 amps. So it was two separate services to the same house, which is not typical. So we backed out one of those services. It's now one single 200 amp service. And then there's a power pole on the back garage, outside in the back. And then we went underground with 200 amp all the way over here, ran it up and then into there. This is our low voltage Cat 6 distribution. So this goes in the certain spaces in the house where the client wanted to put Wi-Fi repeaters and make sure that everything in the house was covered by Wi-Fi and a strong signal. So I believe we have one up in the attic space and then one on the main floor, and they're able to connect it everywhere. And that's pretty much a tour of the inside of the house for now. I guess the only drops that we ended up doing in this space was in the basement on the either side. So this drop right here, this services the floor registers for the high velocity air on the main floor. So the purpose of this on both sides is that's how we get our heating and air conditioning on the main floor without having any drops on the main floor.
And would you want to highlight anything about this project that you found very, very cool or very interesting, very much out of the box?
I would say as most renovation projects go, the scope typically evolves as we uncover stuff, as we discover things. So as an example, right where you're standing, there was a fireplace. So there was a massive brick fireplace right here that the base was on this floor, and it ran up through the main floor and went through the primary bedroom on the top floor and then out through the roof. And originally the plan was to retain that fireplace, wood burning fireplace. The fireplace was on the main floor in the living room, so facing that way upstairs. And everything was supposed to be retained around that. The kitchen was built around a fireplace in the middle. The primary bedroom and storage and everything was based around that. And then as we started taking everything apart, we noticed there's like a bit of soot inside of the walls, which is not a good sign. So we had a fireplace or chimney inspector come in, take a look at the chimney, and it was not good. They pretty much said that there was so much creosote buildup that it was essentially, they could have a chimney fire at any given point. And there was signs on the top floor that the chimney was actually venting into the stud space. So we hired a chimney inspector to come. They gave us a report. We met with the clients and said, okay, this is where we're at. It's probably not safe to do it. We can't upgrade that chimney. So it's a brick chimney, and you can't upgrade it and make it better and make it functional. So the only way to do that would be to tear down the whole thing and rebuild a new brick chimney. And that just wasn't something that they wanted to do. So we brought it up to them and said, okay, it's not really safe to be using this fireplace. And if you're not going to use it, is that the best use of this space? Just to have like an ornamental fireplace? Or do you kind of want to rethink what you're doing everywhere, take it down, and then open up the space? And that's where you can see on the main floor, we opened it up with a steel beam. So it's just like an open concept kitchen, living room right now, or dining room, sorry. And then downstairs, they actually ended up with like a decent sized playroom for the kids.
Yeah, I guess that's the footprint.
Yeah, if not, it was kind of like there was walls here. They probably would have had to have walls over here, which you just lose all of this space right here. And then this, as an example, is the depth required on a beam to support everything upstairs. We needed a greater depth in beam than we did in joist space. So it's 2x8 joist space, and I think it was like a 9 or 10 inch beam that had to go in. So the beam had to stick down. So we did our best to push up the beam as tight as possible. And this is the smallest drop we could do and achieve what we wanted structurally. And I should mention, this is the smallest beam we could get in wood. So the client, there is an option, or was an option, to go for a steel beam, which means anytime we go from a wood beam to a steel beam, the steel beam will typically be less tall than the wood beam. It wasn't in huge importance for this client. They said it wasn't a worry in the basement, and they clear this anyway, so they can walk under here without ducking. It's not like they're going to hit their head. So I guess renovations constantly evolve, constantly change, and we just kind of work with the client. When we encounter something, we bring it up, just say, okay, this is what we've encountered. You can do A, B, C. These are how much A, B, C cost, and then explore what they want to do with that moving forward.
Excellent.